Hello students, welcome to my Digi Classrooms powered by A1 Toppers Academy. Before starting this video, if you still have not subscribed our channel, please kindly subscribe it. Click on the bell icon to get regular updates from our channel. We are available on all social media platforms. You may follow us on Telegram, Facebook and Instagram. We have our own website with the name of a1learnings.com. Please kindly visit this website to know more about our courses. Today we are going to start with the very first topic of class 9, that is matter in our surroundings. What's the introduction to this chapter? Do you know what is matter? I know you have done it in your previous classes also. What is the definition of the matter? Anything which occupies space and have mass is called matter. Or even we can say that everything that you see or touch is made up of matter. If we look around us, we can see a large number of things of different shapes, sizes and texture. Many of these things are used by us in our everyday life. The food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, the clothes we wear, the stars, the clouds, the plants and animals, as well as all the numerous things in the world are the various forms of matter. Feeling of love, affection are not matter, as they do not occupy space and do not have mass. Now, what is the classification of matter? How the matter is classified? Ancient Greek philosophers considered that all the forms of matter is made up of 5 basic elements, which they called it as a panch tattva, which is air, earth, fire, sky and water. According to them, everything living or non-living is made up of these 5 basic elements. Ancient Greek philosophers had arrived at a similar classification of matter. But a modern day scientists have evolved 2 types of classification based upon the physical and chemical properties of matter. Based upon the physical properties, matter is classified as solids, liquids and gases. Based upon the chemical nature, matter is classified as pure substance and impure substance. Let's elaborate this. Classification of matter, it's a flow chart. Matter on the basis of physical classification is elaborated in the form of solids, liquids and gases. Solids are further of 2 types, crystalline solids and amorphous solids. It's a chemical classification of matter. Chemically, the matter is classified into 2 types, pure substances and impure substances. The impure substances, mixture is included in it. The mixture is further of 2 types, homogeneous mixture and a heterogeneous mixture. The pure substance is further classified into 2 types, elements and compounds. The elements are another of 2 types, metals, non-metals and metalloids. The compounds are of 2 types, inorganic compounds and organic compounds. In the chapter 1, we just have to deal with the physical classification of matter. The chemical classification will come in your next chapter. Now, what about the difference between the solids, liquids and gases? There are few points in which we can differentiate between the solids, liquids and gases. First is, solids are rigid in comparison to the liquids and gases. On the other hand, liquids are not so rigid. Gases also are not rigid. Gases are also not rigid. Why? Because solids are, in the solids, the atoms are packed by the strong intermolecular forces of attraction. They have very less intermolecular spaces. So they show this property which is called as rigidity. Solids have definite shape and definite volume, but liquids, they have definite volume but no definite shape. Gases, they neither have definite shape nor have definite volume. Solids particles have very low kinetic energy because they're packed strongly with the very strong forces of attraction, so they do not move here and there. So liquids molecules have intermediate kinetic energy. Gases, they possess very high kinetic energy. Solids can't be compressed. Liquids can be compressed. Gases, they can be compressed easily to some extent. Their molecules are held tightly by the strong nuclear forces, or we can say that intermolecular forces. So on the other hand, liquid are held tightly at an intermediate level, and in gases there are very weak forces of attraction. Solids are present in a very dense form. Solids have high density. Liquids on the other hand is at an intermediate level. Gases possess very low density. Solids cannot flow, it cannot show the property of fluidity. On the other hand, liquid shows the property of fluidity, and gases show the property of fluidity at a very high extent. The diffusion rate of solid is very low, the diffusion rate of liquid is moderate, and the diffusion rate of gases is very high. Now, it's very important to know from where the matter is composed of. According to Maharishi Kannada, was the first to suggest that all the forms of matter are composed of very tiny particles, which he called it as a anu. According to him, each anu is made up of very tiny particle called as parmanu. The Greek thinkers Democritus and Leucippus held a similar view. They called these ultimate particles as atomos, which further changed to atoms. In Greek, the word atomos means uncut or indivisible, which means the substance which do not divide it further. Thus, matter is made up of very tiny particles called as atoms. The number of particles present in a matter is, however, very large. For example, a drop of water contains at least 10 power 21 particles of water in it. So these particles are even so small that we cannot see with the help of a powerful microscope. Now, what are the physical nature of matter? Matter is made up of particles. Particles of matter have spaces between them. The particles of matter are continuously moving. The particles of matter attract each other. So these are the few physical nature of matter. Let us elaborate these properties with the help of activities. First, the activity which shows that how small are the particles of matter. To do this activity, we just have to take 2 to 3 crystals of potassium permanganate, which we have to dissolve in the 100 ml of water taken in a beaker. After dissolving 2 to 3 crystals of potassium permanganate in the beaker containing 100 ml of the water, you see that the color of the water changes to dark pink. Then you have to take 10 ml of the solution from that beaker, and you have to put again this 10 ml of the solution in the another beaker which contains 100 ml of the water. You have to repeat this process 5 to 6 times. What does this show? This shows that a very few crystals of potassium permanganate can color a large volume of water because there are millions of tiny particles. From this activity, we conclude that the matter is composed of very small particles. Next activity which shows that particles of matter have spaces between them. To show this activity, to prove this activity, we have to take some water taken in a beaker and note the level of the water. We have to dissolve some salt or sugar in it with the help of a glass rod. The salt dissolves in the water, but the level of the water doesn't change. You wonder why? This is because the particles of salt or sugar get into the spaces between the particles of the water, which shows that the matter has spaces in between them. Next activity which shows that the particles of matter are continuously moving. To show this experiment, we have to do one activity. We have to take some water in a beaker and we have to put a drop of blue or red ink slowly along the sides of the beaker. Leave it undisturbed for a few hours. What do you observe? You observe that the ink spreads evenly throughout the water due to the movement of the particles of water and the ink. So from this activity, we conclude that the particles of the matter are continuously moving. Now there are two more activities which shows that the particles of matter are continuously moving. The first activity is Brownian movement. So what is Brownian movement? So Brownian movement is the activity which gives the evidence about the particles of matter are continuously moving. The best evidence for this existence and the movement of particles in the liquid was first given by the Robert Brown in 1827. He suspended pollen grain in the water and looked into the water through the microscope. It was observed that the pollen grains were moving rapidly through the water in a very irregular way, or we can even say that a zigzag way. So here is the diagram which shows that the motion of the pollen grain inside the water. It was also observed that on warming the water, the movement of the pollen grain further increased. Do you know why? So as water is made up of a very tiny particles which are moving very fast, the pollen grains move on the surface of the water because they are continuously being hit by the fast moving particles of water. So this haphazard motion of the pollen grain is called as Brownian movement. So this haphazard motion is called as the Brownian motion, or even we can say that Brownian movement. So next property which shows the evidence that particles of matter are continuously moving is diffusion. So what is diffusion? So diffusion is the spontaneous intermixing of the particles of matter on their own. So, or we can say that the motion of particles from the region of high concentration to the region of lower concentration. Diffusion occurs in all the states, that is solids, liquids or gases. As do you know, diffusion is fastest in gases and the slowest in solids. So why it happens? So there are few factors on which the diffusion depends. So here are the some factors on which the diffusion depend. The first factor is temperature. The rate of diffusion increases with the rise in the temperature. This is because when the temperature of the substance is increased by the heating, its particles gain more kinetic energy and move more rapidly. This increase in the speed of the particles of a substance which increases the rate of diffusion. Second is surface area. If the surface area is more, the diffusion is more. Third is concentration gradient, or even we can say density. The rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the density. More the density, lesser the diffusion, lesser the density, more the diffusion. So lighter gases such as hydrogen, methane, ammonia, so why they diffuse fast? Because these gases have very low density. So the rate of the diffusion of these gases is much more as compared to the heavy gases such as oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. Next is size of particles. If the size of particles is small, the rate of diffusion is more faster. Next is diffusion medium. Diffusion medium means from which the medium from which the substance diffuses. So it is slowest in solids, faster in liquid, and more fastest in gases. So I hope you understand all the basics of the chapter matter in our surroundings. In the next video, we will explain all such topics which are included in this chapter. So thank you for watching this. Please subscribe our channel, like this video and share this video with your friends.